April 10th, 2002, Antron Singleton was arrested and charged in Los Angeles with the brutal murder of his friend Tanisha Isaiah.
When Antron finally came to, he was already in a jail cell, naked with a blanket and a spit guard, and he didn't realize where he was at first. They told him that he was a murderer and that he was going to be in jail for life.
I came to, I woke up in the county jail. I had been in jail for about a week, and my lawyer came to see me. He was like, "Do you know you're in jail for?" And I'm like, "No." And he was like, "Homicide." I'm like, "What? Are you joking?" So, I mean, it was all a shock to me.
People that are heavily under the influence of PCP act very bizarrely, act violently, engage in behavior that is, for want of a better term, nuts.
The arresting officers found Antron wandering the streets covered in blood. As they cuffed him, they noticed he was chewing on something.
Singleton was not responding, not cooperating, was grunting, was chewing on what he believed to be hamburger. He was transported to the hospital. Vomiting was induced.
Medical tests revealed the drug phencyclidine, commonly known as PCP, in Antron's blood and human body tissue in his stomach.
While the extent of Antron's crime was quite gruesome, I wasn't completely surprised. Sometimes our basic instincts kick in when we are under the influence. Fight or flight, hunger, these things can cause someone to do things they wouldn't ordinarily do.
He killed her, ate parts of her, and then walked out of the apartment and down the street. I've done over 200 murders. Most murders are in the heat of passion. They're done by guns and knives and stranglings or what have you, but not like this.
My whole heart fell to the ground. I mean, I'm not a killer, so I instantly began to think about her family, began to think of my responsibility. I was funding all the parties. I was helping them pay their rent. They were using the money that I was giving them to buy more PCP. If I wouldn't have been around, I don't think none of this would have happened.
In the spring of 2003, Antron Singleton went on trial for the murder of Tanisha Isaiah.
I think Antron Singleton was predisposed to violent behavior. I think that's part of him. And if you look at, for example, his rap lyrics, that says a lot about a person.
I'm like a rap pod, fresh meat out there fast, and walking down the street with the bread.
I specifically remember one of the songs was about Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees and Jeffrey Dahmer and Charles Manson. All of those people are famous for using cutting instruments to cut people up.
He wrote about it. He was infatuated about it. Why? Dahmer was unbelievably violent and popular. And he writes a song about him as a gangster rapper trying to make a name for himself. So that's on his mind. Then he gets high and starts hallucinating. It's not unusual to think he's going to go to that level.
The district attorney said that my song lyrics were a blueprint to crime. That was one of the points that the district attorney used to inflame the passions of the jury to make it seem as if my crime was premeditated. My music is not who I am. That's a character I created. I never really thought about the consequences of the lyrics of the song being thrown back at my face.
I guess you have to ask yourself, did he ever think of this before when he's doing his rap songs? Is he living out one of his fantasies? I don't know what was Antron Singleton's mind. I know that day he was one of the worst cases of PCP I've ever seen in my 27 years. I don't know what was in his mind before he committed the murder, but the murder was very violent.
Singleton pled not guilty by reason of insanity.
He admitted that he committed the murder. The question becomes, do you have the mental faculties to know right from wrong?
My key in prosecuting him was to show how deliberate all his conduct was. When you break it down, you see that everything he did was deliberate towards a certain end.
The court ruled against him after a medical evaluation found him mentally fit to stand trial.
I think when you look at that entire timeline and then you look at the crime scene and the things that occurred in there, I think you have to come to the conclusion that he did know what he was doing, and that's the only conclusion I believe that you can come to.
So once the jurors found the murder true and the sanity was rejected, there was no wiggle room. He was going to get life without parole.
On November 7th, 2003, Singleton was sentenced to life in prison.
The first 2 days, the only impressions I ever got of him was somebody who was so under the influence that he could not communicate. When I talked to him when he came down, he was articulate. He's a nice guy.
It's very heart-wrenching. It's just so tough. But on the other hand, he did what he did, and that victim is never coming back. That family is never going to be the same.
Singleton is serving his time at Salinas Valley State Prison. Despite pleas from an internet campaign called Free Big Lurch, his legal appeals to revisit the crime have been turned down.
I mean, I'm not a killer, so that's not my natural instinct. I'm not built like that. It's hard for me to talk about it because I don't want people to take it wrongly, and I don't want to villainize the victim.
From behind bars, he's working with a non-profit organization called the Well Foundation.
Antron, he's pretty much known right now as the cannibal rapper. PCP has ruined his life.
He just seemed like a person that perhaps regretted his actions, but was certainly responsible for those actions.
It was too bad. Too bad he got on this drug. He was on his way up, and he probably would have made a lot of money for somebody. Just too bad it happened.
It's important for me to spread the word about PCP and the Well Foundation. I want youth to know that this drug is not to be played with because I don't want her to